Wall Street veteran Bernard Madoff has been arrested and charged with running a $50 billion Ponzi scheme.
Congress wants to know what caused the Enron meltdown.
Now, while the collective rage currently is focused on WorldCom,
Tyco CEO Dennis Kozlowski was convicted of looting hundreds of millions of dollars.
This is one of the biggest fraud cases ever.
Their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Find out more on this week's episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
Last week, we opened the episode with the discovery of Roberto Calvi, the director of Banco Ambrosiano's body being discovered hanging from Blackfriars Bridge in London. There's no way he's going to do a similar thing this week, right? I mean, what happened to variation in content to keep the attention of people listening? Well, too bad! Giorgio Ambrosoli was an Italian prosecutor in Milan who was put on his last case in the late 1970s. His subject just so happened to be one Michele Sindona, whose political and financial empire lied in ruins across the globe. What he had discovered went deeper, past Sindona's failed banks, and straight to his dark dealings of paying off Vatican officials and bank directors so that he could launder mafia-made heroin proceeds through their coffers. After a 3-day testimony to Italian authorities, Giorgio made his way home late on the night of July 11th, 1979. Outside his door in Via Marazzo della Rocca, he saw shadows move out of the corner of his eye before meeting his end from 4 gunshots straight to the chest. Although they couldn't silence the truth, a message was sent to those who tried to mess with Michele Sindona, and the body count doesn't stop there. So find out more on this week's conclusion to the story of God's banker, Michele Sindona.
The body count doesn't stop there. I think that is the slogan of my life. Put that on my grave.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of White Collars, Red Hands. I'm Kashan.
And I'm Nina.
And yes, we're on to part 2, our first two-parter in a while, this time on Michele Sindona, the topic of which we covered all the way back in the first season. And we're revisiting and giving a little bit more of a deep dive. The number of episodes are the same. The number of books that went into the research have been doubled. And the number of mental breakdowns that I've had in the past 2 weeks writing these is about the same, if I remember correctly. But it was 5 years ago, so who knows?
Kashan said that he doubled the amount of books he read. He read not 1, but 2 books this time.
Was I wrong? Did I lie?
No. You weren't wrong. You weren't wrong.
No, I didn't. So, where we last left off, Michele Sindona had been pushed out of his home country due to the violent fighting between the right and left in Italy, known as the Years of Lead. According to his testimony, an attempt on his life was made while he stayed above Finibank, the Genevan bank that he owned a large stake in. And he had moved again, but this time to New York, where he was going to further expand his empire into these here United States.
Hell yeah, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Roll Tide.
This is where his downfall would ultimately culminate. But it started years before, when he decided to join power with one Carlo Bordoni. Carlo had been a banker with Citibank in Milan, where he had headed their foreign exchange department. And as we learned last week, Michele loved to launder money through the exchanging of foreign currencies. It was his favorite way to do it. He said so himself. A match made in heaven. And even more so because Bordoni was fired from that position because he was using bank money to gamble for his own profits.
Perfect.
If he won, he took the proceeds. If he lost, he wrote it down on the bank's books instead of his. They eventually caught him and forced him to give the money back before they gave him the boot. They told him they wouldn't prosecute if he gave the money back. They did, and he at least avoided catching a charge. But
hey, you know what? They did him a favor.
He did get booted. Well, they kind of did him a favor because he then went to every bank in the city, but he was now blacklisted, and no one would give him another opportunity. So he went from director of an entire business division of a bank to not being able to get a job for his own fuck ups, but still. No one, that is, would give him a shot until Michele Sindona. Sindona knew well enough to not bring him on at the Banca Privata Finanziaria, his big bank, or Banca Union, his other big bank in Italy. But how could he keep himself away from a fellow kindred spirit such as Carlo Bordoni?
Birds of a feather.
Bordonis of a feather. Bordoni called Sindona in November of 1964 and pitched him another idea that suited his background. They would partner in an international currency brokerage firm called Moneyrex. The idea of Moneyrex was to play middleman between banks. When one bank called that had too much of a singular currency, let's say drachma for demonstration purposes, they would call...
What's drachma?
It's a currency. You need to know nothing else about it. So they
You want to know where?
What?
I want to know where.
Google it later. It overcomplicates the story. This whole thing, I think it's Greek. The whole thing is supposed to be as simple as possible. Now I have to start over.
Okay. Sorry.
Let's say a bank has too much of one currency. We'll use something simpler, yen. We all know where yen is from. So they have too much yen. They would call Moneyrex. And then Moneyrex would find another bank that needs yen. What a match made in heaven. The bank that was yen-laden would then transfer the currency through Moneyrex and to the bank that needed the yen, and Moneyrex would keep a fraction of the percent as a brokerage fee for doing the deal between the two banks. The receiving bank would get its yen, and the sending bank would get a fair interest rate on their loan to the other bank. Everyone wins. Michele liked the idea and threw 50 million lira behind it with Bordoni to head it up. Not only would the company bring in a good amount of money if they increased their volume to high rates, a fraction of a percent on billions of dollars in transfers is still pretty good money, but Sindona believed he could get Bordoni to give banks associated with Sindona an unfairly profitable exchange rate on deals that they were a part of through Moneyrex. Now that's illegal, obviously. Mm-hmm. But he thought he could get Bordoni to do it because Bordoni was backed into a corner. He couldn't get a job anywhere else, and he needed the money to fund this venture. For the first 2 years, it went pretty poorly, actually, because of that corner. People knew Bordoni's past, and they didn't want to work with him in his newfound venture. But they advertised relentlessly to banks, and Bordoni pitched the company as being a combination of powerful American banks that had partnered with Sindona previously on purchases of banks throughout the world, and the Vatican, who had also partnered with Sindona on purchasing various things, kind of just saying that all the people behind Sindona are also behind this. Eventually, people joined on, and Moneyrex dealt with 850 different client banks, and they brokered over $200 billion worth of deals annually at their height.
Damn.
Yeah, I forget the exact statistic, but it was something crazy, like the amount of money that flowed through them was technically more than any one bank in the world had in its like savings in a year.
Whoa.
That might not be exactly right, but to just put it in perspective, they were pushing a lot of money through.
And they were wheeling and dealing for sure.
They were doing a lot of business. And also, I mean, the banks liked it because the ones that were shopping around that needed currency, this was a private way to do it. They wouldn't have to like go to banks and be like, we need currency, and then kind of get fucked over in the deal. They could go to a middleman and say, you find it for us. And then they would keep the other bank's name private. So supposed to strengthen the market. So Michele liked Carlo because he was easy to manipulate in his eyes. But Carlo is actually the one who would eventually send Michele to his grave. So Sindona is now in America, and he has banks in a few other countries, but he really wants one in the beating heart of capitalism itself. That is when Sindona was approached by famous American billionaire and he's dead now, but former CEO of CBS television network, Lawrence Tisch. Tisch had a majority stake of Franklin National Bank, a bank in Long Island that at the time, based on its asset holding, was the 20th largest bank in the country, which is not huge, but it's not bad.
Well, it doesn't sound big, but when you think about how many people are in the United States and how many banks are in the United States, it's a decent size.
Yeah, like if you're at a football stadium and you have the 20th largest penis, you're going to be pretty happy about that. But if you have the 20th largest penis at your family reunion, you're going to be sad for a variety of reasons.
Mainly because there's not even 20 men there.
I was like, I always thought Aunt Edna had a look about her.
It's always been Edna. I had a lunch lady named Edna.
That's a stereotype, honestly. She should have changed her name.
I know, but seriously, that was her name.
But so Lawrence Tisch held a 22% stake of Franklin National Bank through his holding company, Lowe's Holding Company. And this 22% stake put them on the verge of being declared a single bank holding company, which if you own 25% of a bank, you come under this like legal definition where you then have to legally divest like your non-banking assets. You can't hold 25% of a bank and then other non-banking assets legally in America as a holding company.
I know that.
Neither did I. But he was close to on the verge of this. So Tisch wanted to sell these shares in the bank. And Sindona wanted a bank. Easy peasy. And the deal was finalized on July 12th, 1972, with Sindona buying the entirety of Tisch's portion of Franklin National for $40 million, which was well above asking price, by the way. He technically overpaid for this bank. Later, prosecutors would say that Sindona illegally moved money out of his banks in Italy to fund this deal, which is an interesting one to begin with because Franklin did have some warning signs. Sure, they had a large number of assets, but they also had a severe amount of credit losses as well. They were known for basically lending money to anyone, and a recent publication by just such a titillating publication, the Bank Stock Quarterly. Oh, what an exciting!
I subscribe. Actually, they mail me an issue every week.
For Bank Stock Quarterly, and they message you. They send you one every week.
Yeah, that's how much I love it. They make me a special edition that they send me.
Oh, okay.
Every single week.
Okay, yeah.
Hey, I think this is what we're gonna put in the quarterly issue, and then they send it to me every single week.
Every week until they get through a quarter, and then they just send you the magazine.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes, and I'm like approved. 10 out of 10.
Well then you probably already know this, but they had named Franklin to have the worst record of the 100 banks that they included in their ranking that year.
I did know that.
I know you did. You're such a fan. But Sindona thought the balance sheets looked like the ship could be righted. And after the purchase, he was elected to the board, but so was Carlo Bordoni. Michele placed other people at the head and supposedly turned his eye away from the day-to-day business of the bank. And that is when Bordoni met his new wife, Virginia. And if you believe Sindona, well, actually, if you believe most accounts, that's when everything went downhill. They really like to blame it on Carlo Bordoni's wife.
It's always a woman. It's always a woman that ruins everything.
Yeah, I don't really know how much to put in that, but from Sindona's account, Virginia convinced Bordoni to start to siphon money off of money wrecks as well as Sindona's banks to keep for himself. And it is true that tens of millions of dollars began to flow out of Sindona's holdings through numbered accounts in Switzerland and then to Bordoni's personal accounts. He definitely took a lot of money from Sindona.
Yeah.
In the end, it's estimated that he stole over $45 million.
Whoa. That's a lot.
It is. And the only issue is that Sindona was kind of doing the exact same thing, but to Franklin National Bank. 2 months after gaining control, he had funneled $15 million out of it and to his Italian banks in like what is basically like a blatant theft. Like he just transferred it from there over to his Italian banks. But the
In 2 months?
Yeah, the first 2 months he did this. But the Franklin Bank was so mismanaged, it actually didn't even notice.
Hey, you know what? They did say they loaned to anyone and everyone.
And I guess $15 million is not enough to send off red flags. I don't know.
Apparently not.
But Bordoni's thieving was originally started because supposedly Virginia claimed that, and trigger warning for sexual assault, that Sindona had attempted to rape her at one point, that he was unsuccessful, but that he had tried. And although the actual truth is occluded, both books side with Sindona, but then again, you have to remember both books were written by men and also before the year 2000. So there definitely could be bias.
Potentially.
But the allegation, and they say that the allegation was created just to get Bordoni to betray his boss. They quote her at times, and I do know people that are crazy enough to say some of the things that she supposedly said, like he thinks you're not a man, and he came over here to show me what a man was because he says you never stand up to him, like stuff like that. And I was like, wow, okay.
That's wild.
But either way, it worked. It did get Bordoni pretty upset, and he was like, all right, I'll steal from him. Even though at this point, Bordoni had to know that he was deeply involved with the mob too. So it's probably not great probably not great to steal $45 million from a guy who is aligned with an organization that's famous for killing people. But yeah.
Some people learn the hard way.
I guess so. Even further, Bordoni advised those heading Franklin to bet on the dollar rising in value. So he starts funneling money out because he basically has this mission to destroy Michele Sindona. Like he wants to destroy his life. So he's stealing money. And then beyond that, he actually started advising those at Franklin National to bet on the dollar rising in value, while he himself heavily bet against this, selling dollars and buying more foreign currencies. And it seems that Bordoni knew something that others didn't because his personal bets paid off. His trading brought in money, while Franklin's foreign currency trading lost millions of dollars every single quarter. Bordoni and the Franklin crew then purposely concealed these losses from management and reported fraudulent statements claiming profits, including in March of 1974 when they claimed a $1 million foreign currency trading profit, while they actually posted a $19.3 million loss. So that is a swing of $20 million.
Yeah.
In the 1970s.
That's a lot of money today.
Yes. And in May of that year, the losses were uncovered by management, and immediately the bank was in danger of becoming insolvent. They were like, we have no money, actually. They're
only the 20th largest bank. They don't have that much money.
That's what I'm saying. To avoid going under, they had approached the Federal Reserve Bank, and they borrowed $110 million. But at the time, interest rates were some of the highest they had ever been as the world sank into a deep recession in the mid-1970s. And in fact, they eclipsed 13% at one point, which I'm pretty sure is higher than it was like post-pandemic. Like, it was bad. We were worried about it now. Think about then. And and Franklin continued to borrow more and more. And by the end, they had taken $1.2 billion from the Federal Reserve. Sindona thought that as a last resort, he could turn to his old friend and now president, Richard Nixon, to save him if things got particularly rough. But 1974 was also the year that Nixon was going through the fallout of the Watergate scandal and was about to be impeached. So, not a good friend to have anymore.
He told Sindona, "I am not a crook."
No, you're probably like, "I am a crook, please. Can you help me, actually?"
Actually, I need your help.
Meanwhile, in Italy, in August of 1974, days before Nixon officially resigned, Sindona had something go right, but at the worst possible time. A year earlier, he had proposed a merger of his two largest Italian banks, BPF and Banca Union, into one, which was finally approved by the Banca d'Italia, the central bank of Italy. And officially, the Banca Privata Italiana, the merger between them, was born. But he was not able to admire it for long. See, news had broken about Franklin's issue with undocumented losses. The SEC actually forced them to put out a statement like, "Yeah, we've discovered these losses.
We fucked up."
And this caused a run for withdrawals on the bank. Not only there in America, but also in Milan, as people kind of smelled blood in the water. They saw Sindona was kind of going down, and they wanted to get their money as far away from him as possible. On top of that, the SEC had officially begun investigating the misreported profit and loss that got Franklin in this position in the first place. And they found rigged deals funneled through money wrecks that benefited Michele Sindona personally. Money kept flooding out, and Michele tried to stay above water. He met with people from the Central Bank of Italy who had given him a $200 million loan to help his situation in the hopes of selling his shares in his newly merged bank back to them. And according to him, the Central Bank of Italy made him an offer to buy those shares in the bank. But the next day, on September 10th, 1974, they rescinded the offer before the National Bank forcibly just seized the assets from Sindona. The Central Bank of Italy just took his banks from him and declared them insolvent. And then they appointed a liquidator to look over kind of divvying up what was left and looking into the books. And that liquidator, of course, was Giorgio Ambrosoli, who would later be shot in front of his own door.
Yeah.
This forced seizing is believed to have been orchestrated by Sindona's old rival from last week, Enrico Cuccia, who he had slighted years before in a deal gone wrong, and was now growing ever powerful in the public banking system of Italy. You might remember he ran Mediobanca, which was a derivative of the Central Bank of Italy. He would later go on to like sit on the board until his death in like 2005. Like, this guy was instrumental in banking in Italy. And he hated Michele Sindona. On October 8th, Franklin National Bank finally crumbled and was declared insolvent. And the dominoes kept falling, as shortly every bank that Sindona had a controlling stake in crumbled, also from undisclosed financial losses, including Finabank in Switzerland. Not long after Giorgio Ambrosoli began looking into the financial records of Sindona's banks, the Italian government issued 2 arrest warrants for Sindona relating to fraud, but Sindona still had friends in high but dark places, and a hope to escape. You might remember that Michele Sindona was a potential member of and good friends with the leader of the right-wing terrorist Masonic Society, P2, and the man who headed up was named Licio Gelli. Gelli advised Sindona to get the hell out of Dodge, and in January of 1975, he fled to Taiwan and stayed with a very good friend of Gelli's, former leader of China and founder of Taiwan, Chiang Kai-shek.
Do you say why they know each other? Why do they know each other?
Who, Licio Gelli and Chiang Kai-shek? Because he's the leader of a very well-known multinational secret Masonic order for the most powerful people in the world.
Oh, they're both connected. Okay.
Licio Gelli, by the way, was personally invited to the the inauguration dinner of Ronald Reagan here in America.
Shocked.
Because
Who's shocked?
because
Not me.
he had messaged them saying that he could gladly print anything benefiting him in Italy during his campaign. And yeah, he knew Chiang Kai-shek. He was well connected to all of the most powerful people in Italy, in the Vatican Bank. So he's well connected, you know.
Very.
And while Michele Sindona was there, he decided that he would actually return to America to try to use Gelli's connections to get him out of trouble instead of just running. Over the next couple of years, Sindona would even try to keep up appearances as a world-class banker. Now, remember, with no banks. He was giving guest lectures at no less than 16 universities at this time between 1975 and 1977 on banking and capitalism. He started to try to rebuild with some small-time deals in construction in New York, and also got involved in advising Gelli and now president of Banco Ambrosiano and later murder victim Roberto Calvi in trying to set up a branch of his bank in South America. Gelli was buddy-buddy with some dictators down there, especially Argentinian dictator Juan Perón. If you're a fan of the Andrew Lloyd Webber hit musical Evita.
Oh, you know what? I've only seen that one time.
Well, that's from that. Michele Sindona, in turn, got Marcinkus, the president of the Vatican Bank, in on the deal. Since South America had such a high percentage of Catholics, he thought it would be a pretty good investment for the Catholic Bank.
I mean, I see his point.
I mean, it's not going to turn out well, but yeah.
Well,
but
in theory.
But as things declined for Sindona, Calvi and Marcinkus refused to be seen with him in public and would only send him cryptic forms of communication that could not be easily uncovered later, like personal messages sent by guards. He's not in prison at this time, but you know.
Yeah.
And good timing for them, because in August of 1975, the first indictments were handed down by the U.S. government regarding fraud at the Franklin National Bank, including one for Carlo Bordoni 1 month later in September, who had conveniently disappeared at the time. In December, top Franklin executive Peter Shattuck pleaded guilty to the charges thrown his way and agreed to flip on Sindona for leniency. In September, Sindona turned himself into a courthouse in Manhattan, but not yet for a warrant for his arrest in the U.S., but rather for a warrant for his extradition to Italy to face his charges related to his banking collapse there. He was then released on bond weeks before Carlo Bordoni was found and jailed in Venezuela, where he had fled to, and he was eventually extradited back here to the U.S. Facing potential extradition, Sindona's enemies started getting some threatening phone calls late at night. And of course, Michele himself claims not to know why these were done in the first place.
Why would that happen?
Well, yeah, you know, when
nothing to do with it.
Well, you know, when a friend knows you're having a rough time, they sometimes, on their own accord, just take it upon themselves to call your enemies and threaten that they should die like a dog.
Yeah. That's what a true friend does.
Which is what one threatening call made to Giorgio Ambrosoli said.
You know what? It's all about how we frame it, right?
And Enrico Cuccia also got threatening calls telling him specifically to get the arrest warrants for Sindona dropped. In New York, two men entered the office of previous BPF employee Nicola Biasi, who had discovered illegal transactions and reported them to authorities after the downfall of the bank. They told him to retract the statements and meet with Michele in person to talk over their differences while threatening to kill him if he did not. And these are only the instances that were reported. I'm sure many other members of banks were reached out to and threatened, and the threats worked, and they decided to remain silent on the issue. The threats against those who would have Sindona extradited did nothing to stop the charges in America, though. And in March of 1979, Sindona was slapped with 99 counts of fraud, perjury, and misappropriation of bank funds tied to the collapse of Franklin National.
99.
Got 99 problems.
He's got 99 problems, and he is all of them.
And they all fraud, perjury, and misappropriation of bank funds.
99 problems, and Virginia is definitely one.
Yes, the one. Sindona really started to lose it after that. Accounts from his family said he was often talking to himself, looking into space, kind of really disconnected. Enrico Cuccia said that they actually met in person after he was slapped with his indictment and also after he was threatened by telephone, so that must have been awkward.
Yeah.
But exactly what happened, what you think would happen, happened, and Sindona at one point threatened that his sons would kill Cuccia if he continued to pursue him. So the threats continued in real life.
The threats keep coming and they don't stop coming.
And this kind of break might have been what pushed Sindona from just ordering threats to ordering murders. Because just a few months later is when Ambrosoli was murdered in front of his house. And 9 days after that, an Italian policeman who was heading the investigation around Sindona's involvement in the heroin trade with the Gambino family in New York was also gunned down in the street. So that's at least two people murdered that were specifically investigating Michele Sindona.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Sindona prepared for his trial, which was set to begin in September. He spent his time throughout the summer meeting with lawyers and studying documents and preparing his case. As you remember, he started this story as a lawyer himself, in tax law, but still a lawyer. Largely, they crafted a defense that Carlo Bordoni, whose stealings from Sindona had been detailed in a lengthy report known as the Hilton Report, so they were kind of public knowledge at this point, their argument that he was the real one behind the downfall of the bank and its fraudulent activity, which you could kind of make at least a partial argument for, because he was seemingly actively trying to destroy the bank to destroy Michele Sindona on a personal level, but it doesn't mean Sindona didn't also do a bunch of illegal stuff. But on August 2nd, while preparing for his case, Sindona seemingly disappeared without a trace. Newspaper headlines declared he had been kidnapped, and the FBI opened a formal investigation. While he was missing, his family received multiple letters postmarked from Brooklyn, where he was claiming to be held, and he claimed to have been kidnapped and was being constantly interrogated by leftist terrorists who wanted to punish him for his crimes in some vigilante sort of way. Sindona's lawyer received a picture at one point of Sindona looking emaciated and tied to a chair with a handwritten letter on his chest saying, "The true trial will be handled by us," written in Italian, of course.
Damn.
On October 9th, a month after Sindona was slated to start trial to begin with, a man was apprehended trying to deliver a message to that same lawyer. This one was from Sindona himself, asking for a passport and a large amount of money. And what
Like, these guys are so dumb.
Yes. And wouldn't you be surprised, but 1 week later, he randomly appeared in a phone booth in Manhattan with a healing gunshot wound in his left thigh. It was quickly discovered that obviously Sindona had faked the kidnapping. According to him, because he would admit it later, he had done so to tour Italy on behest of the CIA, which, remember, the CIA was funneling money to him. And supposedly he was meeting with leaders who could help start a revolution against the growing communist government. Basically, he's saying that the CIA was trying to fund a coup in Italy to stop communism progressing there, and that they had already had all of these meetings with high-level people that he had to go to that couldn't be rescheduled because they're like, prominent leaders, and they had made them months in advance.
I mean, it is slightly believable. We find out some crazy stuff that the government's done, so this isn't totally out of the realm of reason.
Yeah, but another school of thought believes that Sindona was just trying to get away from being tried, and then he came back when things were obviously going to be uncovered. I think there is some stuff online that said that he spent most of his time at like a hotel in Europe, like not in Italy even. So either way,
He's probably lying.
Either way, he wasn't actually kidnapped, and he actually had a doctor friend of his shoot him in the leg and then treat the wound. And then part of the reason that he had to come back is because although the doctor was trying to treat it, it started to become infected.
I mean, it's infected really easily, so that's not shocking.
So he was like, let's just go throw you in a phone booth. Because obviously that doesn't make sense. Like, why would these people just let him go?
Right. No, they wouldn't.
That literally makes no sense.
If he was really kidnapped, they would not care if his leg got infected and he died. Like, that would not be a problem for them.
No. He was setting this up like they were definitely going to kill him. But then they never killed him. But either way, he may have bought himself a couple of months, but it was time for the trial to begin. The actual crimes committed by Franklin National Bank that Sindona was charged with centered around a very convoluted series of transactions where money flowed out of Franklin through shell companies, through obscured bank accounts, and to Sindona's bank in Italy. They also dealt with the rigged deals going through money wrecks that Sindona was making huge profits on the exchange rates of. Now, this is confusing to a regular juror, but what really gets them is emotion. And Carlo Bordoni took the stand and unleashed all of that hate he had for Sindona since Virginia told him about the attempted sexual assault. And he included that account, by the way, in the testimony, so that came up in court. That, combined with Sindona deciding not to take the stand, which has been shown to statistically increase your chances of being convicted, ended in just that. He was convicted on all but one minor count of an amended indictment that only had 68 counts. 2 days before sentencing, Michele Sindona tried to take the easy way out and attempted to slit his wrists in prison, but was found bleeding out and taken to the infirmary before the job could be completed. And in June
too bad we couldn't have done that with Epstein.
Yeah, if you just left him long enough, he might have killed himself.
Yeah, he might have.
And in June of 1980, Michele Sindona was sentenced to 25 years in prison here in America for fraud. In 1981, the Italian government charged him with ordering the murder of Giorgio Ambrosoli after the gunman, an American mob man and convicted bank robber William Arrico, was discovered by blabbing to a cellmate about the killing and that Sindona had paid him to do it. William Arrico was also charged, but never convicted, as he fell to his death while trying to escape Rikers Island Prison in New York.
Oh, wow.
He got out of a window and he fell off the roof.
Damn.
And may or may not have been crushed by another man. That's up for debate.
Well, I mean, he probably wouldn't have done well with the fall, and then, the other guy just needed cushion, so.
Yeah, Power on Earth really talks about how he was like escaping with a fat guy and the fat guy fell on him. And I was like, was that Like, why did you focus on that so much in this part of the book?
This feels fat phobic.
The other, like, all the other accounts of his death just say he fell to his death. So maybe or maybe
the
not.
other guy's like, the other person's like, we gotta put the fat guy in here.
Maybe he was crushed underneath a fat guy. I don't know. Meanwhile, more of Sindona's friends were in hot water. This time, the offices of P2 were raided looking for information on Licio Gelli. In the office, they found a list of over 900 members of the secret organization that he had written down for some reason, including many high-ranking officials, as we've mentioned, the public leaking of which caused a mass exodus from the Italian government, kind of caused a full reconstruction of the Italian government after this list came out, because so many people were named in it. During the raid, they also found papers linking Sindona, Gelli, and Roberto Calvi to financial crimes and their conspiracies to funnel lira, the currency of Italy, out of the country to destabilize its economy, which, if you remember, that was their core mission, was to try to destabilize the economy and reinstate a dictatorship.
Mm.
Gelli went on the run, but the news absolutely destroyed Calvi and Banco Ambrosiano, of which he was the president of. The bank subsequently collapsed, and Calvi was charged and convicted with the illegal export of currency. Calvi then also tried to commit suicide and also survived for the time being. Calvi tried to bribe his way out of prison. He actually bribed the socialist government with like $30 million. But after that, they still moved forward with charging him for even more crimes related to the funneling of money into the South American subsidiary of Banco Ambrosiano that he was trying to create. So he eventually fled, only to be found hanging underneath the Blackfriars Bridge 2 weeks later, killed either by the mafia or by P2, or maybe even by the Italian government themselves. He supposedly carried papers detailing that $30 million bribe as a blackmailing chip when he fled, and he supposedly kept it in his briefcase. Well, his briefcase was missing when they found his body.
Interesting.
And then it showed up years later when it was sold, now empty, to an Italian businessman.
Why would you not burn it?
I mean, we don't really know if this is true.
It doesn't even make sense. People do the dumbest shit, and that doesn't even make sense. Throw it in the river.
Either way, he did. Licio Gelli actually was later tried for that murder, like connection for the murder, and they found that they did not have enough evidence to convict him. But like, maybe. Sindona, while serving his 25-year sentence, fought against his extradition to Italy, saying that the charges he faced were politically motivated. But his petitions were denied, and in 1985, from his new Italian prison in Voghera, he was tried and sentenced to 12 years for bank fraud and fraudulent bankruptcy. He then, a couple of months later, faced a trial for the murder of Giorgio Ambrosoli, of which he was also convicted and then sentenced to life in prison in March of 1986. 2 days later, Sindona drank a coffee laced with potassium cyanide while in his cell, and whether he put it there himself to finish the job he had attempted in the U.S., or if he was silenced because of the secrets he could tell now that he had nothing else to lose, is not certain. What is certain is that he slipped into a coma and died on March 22nd, 1986. Licio Gelli was arrested in Switzerland trying to withdraw $50 million from a numbered account before escaping prison and fleeing to South America for 4 years. Eventually, he surrendered himself back to Switzerland, was extradited to Italy, and was convicted on charges related to the collapse of Banco Ambrosiano. He was sentenced to multiple 10-plus year sentences and served them under house arrest the entire time until his death of 2015. Also, fun fact, he was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize in Literature at one point.
Even though he committed all those crimes?
Yeah, this guy does not seem like a good guy to me.
But well, I guess the Pulitzer doesn't care about what kind of person you are. It really just cares about your writing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know what he was nominated for, but he was. He did not win, though, just so we know. Carlo Bordoni, who orchestrated this dramatic collapse of Sindona, was extradited to Italy while serving a 7-year sentence here in America. There, it's believed that he leaned on his connections to allow him to escape prison. And then he and Virginia simply faded from history. They likely disappeared to South America, and they were never seen or heard from again.
Wow.
Maybe they were murdered too. I don't know, but they probably got away. They probably got away.
It's interesting how many of them were just like, I'm going to escape from prison.
Yeah, it did happen a lot, except for William Marico, who was crushed by that fat guy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But he attempted.
He did attempt. And that ends the tale once again of Michele Sindona. I gotta say, doing this story again, I found it just as interesting as 5 years ago. And I hope that now we have made the story much more easy to be followed than it was all the way back then.
A little bit more digestible.
A little bit. I can have a tendency to keep adding things into scripts because I find each small thing in a story interesting and important to the plot. But even with 2 parts, I still couldn't put the whole story down on paper this time. Therefore, if you're interested in learning more, please check out our sources for these episodes. Once again, Power on Earth by Nick Tosches and St. Peter's Banker by Luigi Difonso. And someone really needs to make this into a movie also, by the way. So if you can do that, please do.
We appreciate it.
Although the Godfather, I didn't mention this at all, but it comes up so much in Power on Earth that Michele Sindona blames The Godfather, like the movie, for being the reason that everyone thought he was involved with the mob, because it came out in like the mid 70s, like right as he was reaching his power in America. And he's like, well, everyone saw The Godfather, so now they think every wealthy Italian is connected to the mob. But he was connected to the mob. Yeah. So I was like, oh my God. I was like, you're going to blame it on Francis Ford Coppola, bro? Like, you are part of
I gotta blame somebody.
You are part of the mob.
Dude, you literally are the mob.
Yeah, I also didn't mention he was like indicted with the heroin stuff too, but you know, he got convicted of murder and stuff, so they were probably like, we don't care about it. He was sentenced to life in prison. Maybe he would have caught more charges if he didn't fucking die, right? But
yeah.
But yeah, so and then obviously, of course, the Vatican. Yeah, nothing ever happened to them. There was like investigations, and the SEC once again looked into Paul Marcinkus, but they're kind of on an island all their own. They're their own country, so they never got slapped with any big repercussions. And you would know more about that if you also went back and you listened to our episode specifically on the IOR and its forming and all of the terrible things it's done in the past. This is just one of them. There are many more. So that's that. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you liked what you heard and you want to support us, please leave us a review. You can leave us a words review on Apple Podcasts. If you listen there, you can leave us a star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you listen on anything else, you're a little podcast hipster, you can go ahead and subscribe. They all got something you can do to support the show for free, so please do that. If you want to watch the videos, that's only available on Spotify. Also on Spotify is a subscription service. If you don't want to hear ads during the show, it's $1 a month. That's 25 cents an episode, and you can listen to all of our episodes completely ad-free. So go ahead and do that. You can also support us for free by going to our socials and interacting with us there. That's facebook.com/whitecollarsredhands, Instagram at whitecollars_redhands, X at whitecollarspod, and TikTok. I hear the new TikTok is terrible, but I haven't seen evidence of that yet. But everyone's talking some mad shit on it. But But we're there at White Collars Red Hands. You can also go to our website, whitecollarsredhands.com. If you want to contact us and you don't want to DM us on any of those other social apps, you can go to the website. There's a contact us page, or you can send an email directly to whitecollarsredhands whitecollarsredhands@gmail.com. There we go. And there you can suggest an episode. We try to do a fan-submitted episode every season, and yours could be next if you contact us there. And while you're at that website, why don't you click that button that says check out our merch. Buy something. It's merch. You know what merch is. If you want it, you can get it. The best thing you can do for us, though, tell a friend. Word of mouth is how most people find new podcasts to listen to, and if you could tell someone about ours, we'd be forever in your debt for another listener. And I think that's it. So once again, thank you for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you next week as we start another two-parter. This one headed up by Miss Nina Kern on another episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
Red Hands.